YouTube land. This is Brent and Son coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Today I have with us someone I've been really wanting to talk to for a long time, Scott Carpenter. He's worked with David Paulides. He's worked with Melba Ketchum. He's got a very unique way of trying to capture video and images of Bigfoot and has caught Dogman on film and other such things with this back trail cam that he puts on his shoulder, GoPro, and it has some good results with that. But he also has a lot of knowledge and a lot of things that he's contributed to the research in this particular genre of cryptids. But anyway, I won't make anybody wait any longer. Let's just talk to Scott and find out a few things from him today. Hello, Scott. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I've been trying to get up with you, but it's been holiday season, and that's a busy time for everyone. If you would, Scott, kind of tell us how you got interested in Bigfoot and Dogman and those type of things. Or start with Bigfoot, if you would.
Yeah, well, I started researching Bigfoot in 2009, and it was after an incident. I had a job where I worked by myself, and during lunch hour I didn't have anywhere to go, anybody to talk to, so I'd hop on YouTube, watch different videos, watch fishing and hunting videos, and one day I saw one of those Bigfoot videos, and I watched a couple of those. Of course, I kind of thought it was funny at the time, but the guys were hooping and hollering, beating on trees and stuff like that. So a couple of weeks later, I'm out fishing on my favorite lake, and I'm off a point and I'm throwing topwater. It's early in the morning. About that, I'm by myself, and I thought, off a whim, I made some crazy whoops, and I kind of felt kind of embarrassed. I thought, God, I hope nobody heard that, And a couple minutes later, something come tearing down through the woods, and I don't mean like walking through the woods. I mean just tearing down through the woods towards the end of the point. And of course, the point's just covered in brush and briars. It's all grown up. I know the area is a hunting area and a place where people can ride horses and stuff, but I'm like, there's no way that's a horse. And I was kind of in shock, and this thing came down. Never did come out where I could see it, but it came right, just a few feet, stayed back in the shadows, a few feet from the bank, and I could hear it walking up back and forth, and like it was looking for me or looking for what made that noise. And from time to time, I could hear it make a noise,
Yeah.
And at this point, I don't know what to think. I'm punching that trolling motor, it's backing off the bank. I'm like, I'm too close. This thing jumps in. I don't know if I can get out of here, man. And I'd say for that, it probably lasted maybe a couple minutes. This thing went up and down the bank. Look, and I could see movement back in the shadows. That should make nothing out. And then it stopped for a second, and it made like two, just like you would, just a real loud. I could hear this stuff, like that, just like it was exasperated. And then just turned and it walked back up in the woods. Of course, it walked slowly back up in the woods, but it was bipedal. It was crunch, 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 and it just went back up on the point of land. And so that's what got me interested or back into it. And the next week, I grabbed a little Sony video camera I had, took off to that area to see if I could figure out what had made the noise. And so that's what got me started.
And where was this at?
This was on Tellico Lake out here in a public land area.
In Tennessee?
Yeah, Tennessee, in East Tennessee.
Okay, that
I mean, you could, I mean, literally in the foothills of the Smokies, the lake, you can see the mountains.
wow, that sounded pretty incredible. So did you think that it was a Bigfoot at that point?
Well, I didn't know what else it could be. I thought about it for a while. That's why I wanted to go in there to see. I knew it was pretty thick, and I didn't think it was it been somebody on a horse. I know what a horse sounds like in a person. Right. When a horse neighs or blows.
Right.
And it definitely wasn't a horse. And so, what kind of the clincher for me is when I did go back a couple weeks, and I went back in there. I mean, that area was literally so thick I couldn't walk into it.
Right.
The briars and everything. There's just no way.
Right.
So at that point, I kind of figured, more than likely it was a Bigfoot.
Right. Yeah. I hear people talk about sometimes that they heard that it was walking bipedally. You can tell the difference, can't you?
Oh yeah. I mean, this area has had people riding horses all the time down the trail, and you could hear a horse coming.
Right. Yeah.
You can hear it. You can tell the difference.
Yeah.
This was different. This was different. Just a left or right, a left or right.
Yeah. So.
No foot. Horse will drag its foot. A horse will drag, kick its foot out. And there wasn't none of this.
Whenever they come crashing through the woods like that, do you think that they're trying to be intimidating? Because I know they can be awfully stealthy too.
Yeah, all I can assume, and I'm going to tell you right now, the looks I made were horrible. Okay, I mean they were, and all I can figure is I must have made, some sort of vocalization that was either threatening or, he thought was maybe a rival or another plan.
Right.
He was going, he was coming down there to make a display.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty much blind luck. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a skill.
Yeah.
It's just in the right place at the right time.
Wow, that's incredible. And it went from the shadows and stuff you seen moving around. Could you tell that it looked large or?
Really couldn't see. I could just see movement. I could tell it was dark. It was either really dark, it was black or brown. You know how it is when the sun's shining on the bank.
Yeah.
On the trees, and then the shadow, you don't really have any sun penetrating, so it's all blind back into the, back in the undergrowth. And every now and then I'd see movement. That's basically all I'd see. That's pretty high up movement. I'd say 6-7 feet, but
right.
So
that
couldn't really tell.
Yeah. So that got you interested in the topic. And then, when did you start doing the research, and kind of, if you could kind of take us through an evolution of that process, if you would?
Yeah. Well, I really started studying it after that. After I went in there and figured out, probably only one thing it could be, and probably about a month after that, after reading everything I could get a hold of for a couple, 3 weeks, and of course, I didn't have the books yet, but I ordered a couple books and, watched some more videos on YouTube. And I pretty much grabbed my camera and late August of 2009, I took off and just, I didn't, green as a gourd. I just, not knowing what basically the heck I was doing, I just jumped right in. So, I'm not outdoors, but I've hunted all my life, fished, hunted, so. I use those skills, and first I thought Bigfoot was more than likely a bipedal ape or something like that, or maybe some sort of missing link. So that's kind of how I approached it.
Right.
And so I hit the woods that August, and things started happening almost immediately. So.
Right.
And it went from. I think it happens this way that anybody gets into it. I got the first time I went out, I got caught by infrasound, and I caught some frames of a Bigfoot hiding in a cedar tree, and then one thing, you know, and that led to me finding an area that looked like a day bed, and I converted that into a feeding station. And the next thing you know, I'm just setting up trail cameras, and I'm leaving them food, and they're taking the food. You know, leaving me kids, and you know,
Right.
just went from there. And
Right.
you know, that's about the time, probably 2010. Is when I kind of caught on to the, you know, if you want to get into the back trail stuff. But I was actually working at the feeding station, and I had my camera, I was just holding it up under my belly. You know, I was just holding it, I was filming off to the left, not really with any purpose, but just holding onto it. And I'm sorting out the food, you know, moving stuff around. And when I get back home, you know, I review my footage. And while I've got the camera pointed towards the brush pile off to my left, this gray-looking Bigfoot sticks its head out for just a few seconds and then pulls it back in. And so that's kind of like, that's what was my, like, you know, moment, like, oh, so this is how I kind of figured out, you know, they're a little bit smarter than I thought they were. And, you know, they have to be watching my eyes, watching where I'm looking.
Right.
So that's kind of where I started working on some way to film behind me or film where I'm not looking.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting in the video you posted the other day, that you gave an explanation that you think that they train on your eyes, and when you go past, they're peeking out, knowing that you're not looking. You know, the eyes mean a lot to animal kingdom things, don't they?
Oh yeah, they sure do. I mean, anywhere from tigers to white-tailed deer. I mean, I'm a deer hunter, and I've actually watched other hunters, and I've watched white-tailed deer hide, literally lay down, and let the hunter walk right by. And then after he walks by, get up and run off.
Wow.
You know, if you're familiar with deer, if a deer, like if you see a deer in thick cover and he's hiding, if you don't make eye contact with him, he usually won't jump.
Right.
If you make eye contact with him and he knows you know he's there, he's gone.
Wow.
And I think that similar to Bigfoot use the same tactics. They're, you know, they have. We'll get into it later, but in my opinion, they have a bunch of rules that they go by.
Right.
And I mean, in eye contact and eye recognition is one of these rules.
Right.
And they don't want to be not to be seen. So that's what I'm saying. They're watching your eyes where you're looking.
Right.
And, you know, so I think another rule is don't get caught on camera. I think the rule of not being seen kind of trumps not getting caught on camera.
Right.
They have the two choices. They'd rather get caught for a little bit on camera. But most of the time, you know, they're always observing you from a location of concealment. And
Right.
they'll just keep, you know, like I say, they'll just sit there and let you walk by, and then they're watchers. They'll stick their head out and take a good look at you.
Right.
And a deer will do the same thing. I mean,
Right.
and other animals will. You know, a lot of people ask me, well, how come you don't get any full-bodied, you know, shots? You know, why is it always the head, or maybe the head and shoulders, or one arm? I'm like, well, I said if their sensory organs were on their elbows, then you'd always be wanting to know why all I got was their elbow. I said that's because their eyes and ears and nose are on their head.
Right.
They can smell, see, and hear.
Wow.
I said, plus you're not going to expose your body. I wouldn't.
Right.
You ever seen a soldier? Let the soldier stick out. You stick his head out just a little bit, right?
Right. Yeah. That makes good sense. Wow. That makes really good sense.
But, you know, a lot of people just don't, for some reason, you know, your armchair researcher can't, you know, and public in general. I mean, since we've gone from to an industrial type society and people don't live on a farm and hunt, don't have any real visual acuity. I mean, they could take a jackrabbit out in the field if they had to.
Yeah.
And so, you know, people just don't know these things.
Right.
So, you know, half the people look at it don't even understand what they're looking at.
You know, also, I think one thing that really hurts the Bigfoot footage that we see, you know, for the most part, is that nowadays cameras are autofocus, and even if you do put it on manual focus, you don't really have good control of your focus. And I used to shoot news. Now, if I could find a camera that, you know, that I could afford, that had the manual focus right out like a DSLR would, I guess you could get one of those, but a shoulder-mounted camera with the focus where you could, you know, use the focus like you used to on a camera, you could get things in better focus because the autofocus focus on the nearest thing, you know, and so a lot of times it makes the footage blurry.
Yeah, I've done videos concerning the way a digital camera actually, you know, records the whole algorithm and how it determines color. And you know, I mean, in one sense, a digital camera, the miniaturization and you know, they got I've got two Sony handycams, HD handycams. You know, they're a godsend because they're lightweight, they're small.
Yeah.
But you know, they're also the dual-edged sword.
Yeah.
You know, if something's standing out in the open and I can take a slow focus on it, I'm good to go. But you put even a human being back in the woods 30 feet and they disappear.
Right.
And it's the algorithm of the camera. The camera is recording digitally.
Right.
And it's kind of taking a mean average of the colors. So if I'm back here, if I've got a white face and I back off into a green bush, it'll turn my face green.
Right, yeah.
And like you said, the autofocus is a killer. You
Yeah.
know, especially, you know, I haven't encountered a Bigfoot yet, for me anyway, when I've had a camera that stepped out in the open.
Yeah.
And you know, other than the Patterson film, that's the only time I know one actually stepped out and walked in the open, where you can actually focus and film it. So, you know, when you're filming them, they're always in the thick foliage.
Yeah, and you know what?
You're going to get that. You just, I mean, even if you get a clear picture, they're usually half obstructed. So you know.
Right. And I tell you another thing that news cameras have is you're able to do your own white balance. So whatever the daylighting, you know, the lighting that you're in, you find something white. You usually bring a piece of white paper or something, and you zoom in on that piece of white, and you push a button and it tells the camera what is white. But now it's even auto, you know, focus. You can kind of set if it's cloudy or if it's sunny or if you're on a beach and those kind of things. And old-fashioned cameras were better in some ways.
Yeah, well, see, the problem is that none of that really translates well to research.
Right.
I mean, I'm walking down a trail. I'm around a blind curve in the trail, and you know, this is what happened to me. Above me on the right-hand side, about 100 feet above me, there's a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Well, when I whip up the camera, he takes a stop pose in big foliage. I don't care. I mean, you know, I don't have time to do white balance.
Right. Yeah.
and do all my settings, and as nervous as I was, doing an autofocus would have been out of the question.
Right.
So it's unless you're like a professional photographer where you've got a blind, and you come in, set everything up, and you wait for the lawn lights to show up. But I don't, the problem with that is, that's not going to work for the Bigfoot because he knows you're there.
Yeah.
He's not going to be stupid enough to get in front of that camera.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to give some people an idea why there's not more great footage. There are issues involved with getting that great footage, and some people get lucky. I think that Freeman guy had a pretty good footage, it looks like it's real to me. Yeah. Patterson Gimlin has got some, that's a good footage. That just two lucky times, and other than that, it's just those glimpses. You've got some pretty good stuff, I think. Of things peeking at you, other than something peeking at you, you just have to get lucky and catch one off guard.
Yeah, I keep hoping one day one of them will run across the trail behind me.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, you've had some interesting encounters.
I'm holding my breath on that one.
Yeah. Well, you made a video the other day where you were walking down the trail on in a national park there in the Smoky Mountains, and you had so many sites there where in the past something had happened. And one of them was that you got zapped. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. But that was when we were in the middle of the genome project, and it was starting to look like these things were some sort of hybrid, human hybrid. And I'd already come to the conclusion they weren't dumb apes. You know, I'd already had eye contact, seen their faces, you know, that they weren't looking like apes, and the intelligence level was way too high.
Right.
So me and a buddy went up there, and on the way out, I told him, I said, because we didn't have a whole lot of activity, and I said, I'm going to try a little experiment here and see. I had just got a nagging feeling. I said, on the way out, I'm going to talk about, I ain't literally going to talk about the Bigfoot, and I'm going to cut them down. I'm going to say they're just dumb animals, you know, they this, that, and the other thing, and I just, I won't repeat it. It's pretty bad stuff, but I want to make sure if it was a person listening, they get PO'd, they get mad.
Right.
And so we're walking out. We're not too far from the parking lot. We're probably about a quarter mile from the parking lot on the main trail going out, the old road bed. And I'm just taking them to town. There's not up here, this, that, and the other thing. They are here, they're dumb, they ain't got no sense, yada, yada, and I'm just going to town. And we're walking along, and while I'm doing this, I'm closest to the creek side, and across the creek's a large, a steep hillside. We're kind of going through a small ravine. And then on the left side, on his side, there's like a rock wall. And I'm just walking along, shooting my big mouth off, and I get hit by something, and I don't know if anybody that's just raised in the country, they know how it feels like to grab an electric fence.
Right.
And it felt like I grabbed an electric fence with my right arm and hand.
Wow.
And this shock, or like an electric shock, ran up my right arm, across my chest, and out my left arm.
Wow.
I mean, it hurt. And it hit me so hard, it addled me. I mean, I stumbled. I almost went down.
Right.
And the guy I was with, of course, I stumbled. He reached out and grabbed me. And I said, did you feel that? And he said, no. But he said, I heard a whoosh like the wind went by my face.
Wow.
And I had my camera going. My camera didn't. I was walking, so, with the walking and everything, you couldn't hear anything, but he had a digital voice recorder that he had, that was running, that he had in his pocket.
Yeah.
And it was, it picked up, and right at the moment that I got hit, there was an audible crackle and pop on that voice recorder.
Wow.
And later, that's the weird thing is, or the disturbing thing is the next morning when I woke up and got up, took my first constitutional in the morning, I urinated blood. Blood was in my urine.
Wow.
And it only happened, it's just that one time. The next time, everything was clear.
Yeah.
And then I called my buddy. I asked him, I said, I hate to ask you this, but I said, I really need to know. I said, did you have blood in your urine this morning? He said, yes, I did.
My goodness.
So, yeah. So when they zap you, whatever they do, whether it's an infrasound thing or some other thing they do, it's not fun. And
right.
It does some damage to you.
Yeah. Hey, I thought that we would kind of skim the surface this time, but then we would get into some more. And I really hope you'll come back for a second interview, and we'll talk about the deeper things that I think that these things are. And I really believe that you can find similar type things in the Bible, to where people were struck with, like in Sodom and Gomorrah, when the angels smote the people with the blindness, and it said they wearied themselves to find the door, like they were physically hindered. They were trying to get to the door, but they were physically not able to do it so easily.
Yeah.
And so there's some abilities that these creatures seem to display, and that's just what he chose to do to you. I have one video that people who got that had different things happen. They got hit with the infrasound or whatever it is, and sometimes it almost like hypnotized one guy. Another guy felt like he was here. He said it felt like warm water going over him, but he started taking his clothes off and folding them. And and that kind of takes me to the next thing. After I heard that, it made me think of David Paulides, when he said sometimes that people come up missing and their clothes is found folded. And this guy, he was getting hit with this. At first it sounded like growling, and then it turned into like water running and a warmth feeling, like he was getting overheated. So he was taking his clothes off, but he was folding the clothes, and that was just so interesting to me. But you know David Paulides, and I thought it was pretty cool to hear him say that he saw a Bigfoot and he was with you.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about David?
Sure. He had come up. Me and David, back when I first got into Bigfoot research, I realized really fast that I was in over my head, and I was kind of looking for some sort of group that give me some support, bounce ideas off of, exchange information. And I kind of looked at the BFRO, and I kind of sired on some of the stuff they were doing and some other groups, and I had ordered David's book, Tribal Bigfoot, or actually the one before that, the Hooper Project, and read that. So I was really impressed with him. So I started sending him and corresponding with him. And after we kind of had a loose relationship, I'd send him info and send him pictures. We'd bounce all ideas off each other. And then a little later, he decided he invited me to join his group. So I joined North American Bigfoot Search. And back in 2011, while he was doing some research for his missing 411 bugs, he came out to spend a week. I took vacation. We went Bigfoot and then also did research for his book, going to interviewing people. And I took him to an area up in the Smokies where I got hair for the DNA project and got some pretty good footage. And as we were going into an area, it was later in the evening. I kind of wandered off and left Dave. I had the camera, and Dave was looking into an area of thick. It was like it's a laurel thick, is what it was. And as he splits down, and he's looking across the creek, maybe about 30 yards away. He looks up and he's looking directly across. And there's a Bigfoot squatted down, looking right back at him. And the Bigfoot around here, they keep the hair cut back off their forehead, and so he looked like he had like the raccoon one. He had the light skin around both eyes, the heavy brow and dark eyes, dark deep set eyes, and then had hair on, had a hairline, above. It kind of dipped down between the eyes, and then. But he said they were just sitting there staring at each other, and he knew he couldn't look away or he hadn't moved. And he kept trying to get my attention to get the camera over there. Finally, he just had to turn his head, say, "Scott, come here." And of course, when he did that, went back, he was gone. Huh. That was his first time, as far as I know, the only time he's ever seen a Bigfoot. Yeah.
Well, what was interesting to me about it is he said in I don't remember, he was speaking somewhere, and he brought that up, and he said something about you you told him to go over to those bushes and just kind of cup his hands over his eyes and just look in there and see what you see. And he was amazed that he saw one, but what was interesting is he said we were not deep in the woods. He was talking about that this was like the entrance area of the state park, and these things are there watching for when people come in so they can keep track of who's in their territory.
Yeah.
Or something to that effect.
Exactly right. We weren't far off the main trail, not far at all.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, that's an interesting. Yeah.
I think a lot of people make a mistake, and I think the old guard Bigfoot researchers thought that they were very reclusive. They were way back in the wilderness. They were really rare. And in my research, I found out the exact opposite. I think the population is a lot higher than we think it is. Yeah. And they live on the fringe of our society.
Right.
I mean, if you go back into history, the Indians, you do a little research about how the relationship with the Indians, and in some cases they even traded with the Indians, but they were always, right on the fringe. They were always watchers, and, they were opportunists. The Indians would always take their, if they were cleaning fish, or, they would be careful about leaving things out, or the Bigfoot would go in and steal it.
Yeah.
And I think that has continued on to this day.
Right.
To this day, now they don't have the Indian tribes; they have us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think they're very far out there, especially trails like the areas I go. I mean, one of the things I was looking for was a trail that had women, children, plenty of water, and horses on it. And this is the area I go, and it was really hard to find. And they're watching that trail. They're watching the people.
Why the horses?
That was one. That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, in David Flatty's first book, The Hooper Project, he has a information systems background like I do, and so he went very methodically. He looked at hundreds of reports, and he started charting these. Making data points, where they were at, what they were doing, man, woman, child, was there an animal with them, et cetera, et cetera. And he began to get a pattern. And one of the patterns that he came out on, it seemed like that the Bigfoot sightings always, most likely included a child, a woman, and was near horses, or near a horse trail.
Wow.
And so, just following, just gleaning all that, from the reports.
Right. That's very interesting. I'll have to ponder on that. That's pretty interesting for sure. Now, when is the first time that you got a really good look? Well, if you have something more to say about that, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I'll throw out another stat I've always found interesting.
Okay.
David found that most full-body daylight sightings, in the high 90%, I can't remember the exact percentile, were women, okay?
Yeah.
Women alone in the woods, usually are the ones that are going to have a full-bodied sighting of a Bigfoot. Not all, but most. And of those women, I think about 98% are on their menstrual cycle. So,
wow.
And that's usually something, that you don't like to talk about, but
right.
Whenever he would get a report, if he felt comfortable enough, he would ask the woman. And he said the majority of the time she was on her menstrual cycle.
Wow.
When the sighting occurred.
Yeah, that's something that we'll talk about later. I mean, if we have time, if things work out in this interview, we'll get to that kind of stuff. But I think where I'm going to go with that. Kind of the biblical nature of that. And when was the first time you ever got a good look at one of these creatures?
Well, the first time I got a really good look at one, well, there were two times. I can go back. I had a childhood experience.
Yeah, go back to that one first, and then tell us the second one. Yeah.
All right. Well, the first one was see in Knox County. And it was late in the evening. I was about, I think it was 71, 72. That made me about 9 years old. It was in the summertime. We had a long triangular den. On the far end of the den was a porch, screen door. I remember Johnny Carson was coming on, and my dad worked shift work, so I'd stay up with my mom and watch TV and stuff. And so the news had just gone off. Johnny Carson was coming on, and Mom said, "I'm going to take the garbage, out, and I'll be right back." So she gets up, gets the garbage, and the garbage can's about, probably about 25 yards behind the house. And it's the old 50-gallon drum deal, Back then, that's where everybody puts their garbage in. And the garbage man would dump that. And so while she turns on the light and goes off the porch, so while she's gone, these two little, all I could think of then was these two little monkey men run up on the back porch and press their put their hands and just press their hands and their face against the glass and look at me. One of them's probably about 4.5 feet tall, and the other one's a little bit, just about half a head shorter. Two little juveniles.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to think. I didn't have a clue. Scared me to death. They're sitting there and they're just staring at me. Big old black eyes. Their hair, they looked like orangutans, but they had regular, flat, wide human noses, and they're just staring at me. And, I'm just mortified. And then they look at each other, look back at me, and smile. And then Mom drops the lid down on the garbage can. It makes makes a racket, and they jerk their heads around, and they turn and run off the back porch. And when Mama comes in, I said, "Did you see them two monkeys on the back porch?" She said, "What?" I said, "You don't see those two monkeys?" She says, "No." She said, "Maybe that was Charlotte and Chuggy." That's my next door neighbors. Playing a trick on you. Well, they're both blonde-headed. I know the difference, Bill. He said, "But she didn't." I didn't remember. She said this. She said, "Yeah, but there's been a skunk or something out there. It smells horrible." So that was my first. And that really bothered me. I had nightmares for a long time.
Wow.
About that. It took me until I figured out that those were Bigfoot. And that was probably in my late 20s when I figured out that probably was a Bigfoot of some sort. When I watched In Search of and watched some of those shows that were coming on back then, I kind of put two and two together.
Yeah.
But that was really the first time I'd ever seen them, and I really didn't know what was going on. And then as an adult, I'd already been researching, and I've got glimpses, but I hadn't really got eye-to-eye contact. And I was getting kind of burned out, and so I decided it was in October, and early October, that it was bow season. So I thought, I'm not going to go Bigfooting. I'm going to go deer hunting. And so I was running just a tad bit late. And I was having to walk a road bed out to where I wanted to hunt. And this was all the same area that I Bigfooted. But of course, I was going to hunt a different area. And so I've got my tree stand on my back and my bow in my hand. And I'm heading out an old dirt road. And I do have my camera, but it's in my pocket turned off. I thought I'd take it with me just in case I wasn't planning on it. And so as I start down a small hill, and I guess I get about halfway down the hill, and I just get that feeling, that something's not right, something's watching me, And so I just stop for a second and just kind of stand there, and I turn around and look behind me up the hill, and the grass is pretty high by now. It's almost, I'd say it's chest high. And as I'm looking back, probably about 75 feet, maybe 100 feet, on the right-hand side, this little black dome of a head starts rising up slowly out of the grass. And it's a juvenile. Well, I'd say juvenile. This thing was about, I got to see it when it jumped across the trail. It's about 6 foot tall. But it had gray skin. Actually it had dark gray skin. It was almost black, but he was dark gray, black skin. And I could see his eyes, you know, didn't have a lot of lively eyes, but I could definitely see his eyes. We basically, he raises up to where the bridge of his nose was just over the edge of the grass, and he's looking right at me. So for 10, 15 seconds, we just stare at each other.
Right.
He doesn't blink. I mean, you could see some flies and stuff sticking around his head, but other than that, after he raised up, he was perfectly still. So after about 10 or 15 seconds, I'm like, say something. So it's like he knew I was getting ready to speak to him. So I started to move my mouth to say hello. And as soon as I started to speak, he turned to the right. He jumped across the old road bed and went just like a track runner. He was bent over and just leapt it. He leapt across it just one jump. It was so fast I just almost questioned myself if I even saw it.
Right.
And then he went up a trail up into the woods. And I went back up there, of course. He was gone. There wasn't really any tracks or sign.
Yeah.
That was the first time I ever, made eye contact with one of them.
Yeah. Now, it's real. I think that's one of the things that helps them to not be seen is they automatically seem to stay perfectly still until they absolutely know that you're looking at them.
Yeah.
And because, I mean, if you think about it, in the woods, you notice something if it's moving. Movement draws attention where something standing still, because, I mean, there's been a lot of times I've heard someone saying they thought that they were looking at a Bigfoot and it looked like a stump, and then they kind of talked themselves out of it, and it's like, nah, that's got to be a stump. So they walk off, and when they come back to that exact spot, they look back and it's gone. So that's very interesting. I think that's one of their elusiveness kind of things. I interviewed this one guy once, and he said that there was a juvenile, and it was out in the middle of a field, and it basically seen that he, that there were some humans, so it froze like right in the middle of this like crawl. It was kind of crawling, but it was in the open, and where it was a young juvenile, it didn't know. It's like, well, look, you're right in the open. We're looking right at you. But I just thought that was interesting because it stayed perfectly still. Now on the little the juvenile Bigfoot when you were a kid, it seems like I've heard even Kumbo talking about. He was playing one time outside, and there was a juvenile come running up to him, but it seemed like it was excited after he thought back on it, like it wanted to play with him or something. And I've even heard other like the little ones seem to be interested in the kids because almost like they want to interact or play with the kids. Do you think that's possible, or?
Oh, yeah, I think it's very possible. I mean, David Paulides has more than one report of like a mother having her kids go out and play.
Yeah.
And then look out the window and see their children playing with a Bigfoot. Just like it's part of it, So, I've heard many reports of children playing, mothers catching children, or mothers and children seeing a juvenile Bigfoot.
Right. Huh. Interesting.
Well, at times, for whatever reason, that's one of the exceptions to the rules, women and children. Yeah.
Now, it sounded like you also had PTSD because the nightmares for a long time. That's kind of a sign of having post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing for me is I just didn't know what they were.
Right. Yeah.
At that age, I had never heard of a Bigfoot. Never seen a Bigfoot show, so I didn't have a clue.
Right.
And, for a while I thought they might have actually been aliens, but I knew, I'd seen TV shows, and I knew what they said the little gray aliens looked like.
Right.
It looked nothing like them,
Yeah. Well, it was certainly a monster. It was a monster to a kid, you know.
I thought they were little monsters, and until I saw, and I can't remember, I was probably in my early 30s, I saw one of those Bigfoot shows where someone talked about an infant, and they showed a little sketch of it, and I was like, oh, okay, you know, and it kind of hit me, well, there we go.
Yeah.
That's what I saw.
Wow.
But, you know, and after that, now, you know, everything, all the nightmares and everything went away.
Yeah, because I think that once you kind of had some understanding, you know, you could place it somewhere, you could categorize it, and it wasn't as bad for you. Now, what about, you provided a lot of DNA evidence to Melba Ketchum, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I had, well, of course, when I started working with David, I think by the time I started working with David, the DNA project had already started. And how detailed do you want me to give it? You just want me to do a quick overview real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, what had happened is David Paulides had got some hair samples. He was wanting to, you know, he was investigating this thing scientifically, and he was wanting to, you know, try to find someone. They had already had some hair samples. He couldn't get a lab to touch it. Every time he would approach a lab and say, I've got samples, and I'd like you to test them, they say, what kind of samples are they? He said, we think they might be Bigfoot. And they just laugh at him and say, oh, no.
Huh.
And Dr. Ketchum she was kind of the same way, but the TV show with Josh Gates, Destination Unknown,
Right.
he had gone and he had got some, you know, what he thought was yeti hair, and gave it to her to test, and she tested it, and she got some results that kind of, you know, shocked her.
Right.
And so when David approached her, she was open. You know, her mind was open to the fact. And so basically that's kind of how they got together. That's a short, simple version, but pretty much she had an open mind about it, and David had a need for someone to do testing, and that's kind of how the project got started. And so as the project got started, we were trying to collect hair samples. They'd gone on coast to coast and, you know, asked for hair samples. And one of the things that we come up with, early in her testing, she'd figured out, so she'd already wasted several $1,000s, that a normal human hair or animal hair has mitochondrial DNA in it.
Right.
She found out the hard way, a Bigfoot hair, a true Bigfoot hair, for some reason, the hair itself will not yield DNA. It just won't do it.
Huh.
So there's a block, there's some sort of enzyme, protein blocker that will not allow it to yield any DNA results. So basically she said, look, if you don't have a skin tag, you've got to have a skin tag. I've got to have flesh, blood, saliva.
Right.
I've got to have something like that. So the call went out that we needed skin tags with the hair samples. So we come up with a way, me and David kind of working together. Let's take some packing tape and wrap it around the tree backwards, you know, with the sticky side out, and see if we can pull some hair out. And I already had a location where I had captured the Bigfoot sneaking up and peeking at my trail camera from around a tree.
Right.
So I went into this location, and around the tree that they like to lean on and peek out at my camera, I put this real heavy-duty packing tape, you know, wrong side out. I probably put it chest high to me.
Yeah.
And about 4.5, 5 feet. Well, 2 weeks later, I go back in there, and I find the tape's not even off the tree. Something has ripped this packing tape off the tree. It's laying a few feet, 7, 8 feet off on the ground, and it's covered in that black hair.
Huh.
And so, excuse me. So, you know, I sent that off to Dr. Ketchum, and she's like 2 thumbs up. You know, it looks like this is Bigfoot hair. So we had a way to get hair now, and so I would do this kind of a tape trap on trees. I'd put food up in the tree, and where they'd reach and get in, or I used to put bacon grease on the side of the tree when it was cold weather, and then wrap the bottom of the tree with tape. And they seemed pretty okay with licking the bacon grease off the tree and giving these hair samples. So I sent about 30 samples in. Of those 30, 11 were in the study determined to be Bigfoot hairs.
And because when it pulled the hair out, it had a follicle on it, is what you're saying?
Yeah, we had to pull the hair out, so it had a follicle, or what's called a skin tag.
Okay.
Same different.
Yeah. Okay.
And I got some saliva samples. But the way they like to eat a candy bar is they'll bite it.
Yeah.
They won't unwrap it. They'll literally put it half in their mouth and bite down.
Yeah.
And put the wrapper and half the candy bar in their mouth, and then they'll spit the wrapper out.
Yeah.
And then they'll on the ground, and then they'll push the rest of the candy bar in their mouth from the other side.
Yeah.
And so I was able to send her a couple of wrappers and stuff like that, but the hair was the big thing.
Wow, that's a pretty ingenious way, man, to get samples of hair, and for you to had known that one was peeking at your trail cam. That's just awesome, man. You definitely were a big contributor to that project for sure.
Yeah, I think I had 11 samples. I know the Olympic Project had a bunch of samples. What's his name? Erickson. Yeah, they had several samples. Erickson samples were perfect. I mean, they had a biologist supervising their collection, so they had a pretty ironclad collection.
Right. Yeah.
Scenario going on with them.
So Melba Ketchum, now, just in case people don't know, she was a genetic scientist. She basically specialized in DNA genetic kind of research, and she had a very, very high kind of ranking type lab, didn't she?
Yeah, what she did, she was a veterinarian, and she got into the DNA side of things. She actually helped map some horse genomes, actually. And basically what happens is, in Texas, if I'm going to, if I have a prize bull that's worth thousands of dollars, I'll gather his semen and I'll sell his semen, and they'll sell that semen for quite a bit of money. And so, or if I sell a horse, and I say this is a thoroughbred horse, well, most of the time people want to have these things verified. They're not going to pay out $30,000 for some, a horse or some semen to inseminate for insemination. It's not the real deal. So they would go to Melba and say, can you test this, make sure this is supposed to be from this thoroughbred bull. And so she'd have the owner of the bull give her a blood sample of the bull, and they'd take the semen, and she'd make sure they matched. Or the same thing with the horse, that sort of deal.
Right.
In fact, there was even a case, she became a forensic expert, and there was actually a court case where this kid had lost his mind, and he had drove home, killed his family, and killed the family dog, and buried the dog. And they dug the dog up, and they found these dog hairs on the kid.
Right.
And the thing about the dog was, I think the dog was obtained after the kid went away to college. So the kid had never been exposed to the dog. And she was able to, forensically match the dog hair found on the kid to the dead dog. and they, you know, and he was convicted of murder.
Yeah.
So, you know, she was, you know, that's, you know,
yeah.
it was, you know, that's how accurate she was.
Yeah. She was a legit scientist for sure. And so can you tell us what the results of the DNA testing was? What she found?
Sure. Basically, to boil it all down, she had non-human hair. They took the hair. They had a hair expert, a forensic hair expert, who knew what, you know, animal hair looked like. And he also had Bigfoot sample of hair. People ask me, how do you know it was a Bigfoot hair? Well, Bigfoot hair has certain characteristics. They also had a eyewitness watch a Bigfoot leave a hair, and a policeman collect sample, so they knew they had Bigfoot hair for sure. But anyway, basically this expert would look at the hair and said, okay, these hair are good for testing. To me, they're Bigfoot hair. They're consistent. So we had non-human hair would give human mitochondrial DNA. So that's your first clue.
Okay.
And then when she tested the nuclear DNA, it came back unknown. And the mitochondrial DNA comes from the mother. The nuclear DNA comes from the father. So here we had non-human hair that yielded human mitochondrial DNA from the mother, but had unknown nuclear DNA from the father.
Okay,
so you put that together with the chain of custody and the eyewitness, and her conclusion was that the creature everybody knows as Bigfoot is a human hybrid of some sort.
Right. So that's basically as scientifically, you should be able to say whatever this hair sample was, if they wanted to dispute what the hair was, whatever it was, it had a human mother and a non-human father. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
In other words, when they use GenBank, and that's a repository for all the genomes, and you can do what's called a blast search. It's the name of the search engine, kind of like a Google search engine, but you're searching the genomes.
Right.
And so you can take your sample,
right,
and say, okay, here's my sample, compare it against the database, and tell me what I got. But when she took the nuclear DNA, and she had 3 complete genomes from 3 different samples. She had a piece of flesh, she had blood and plaque, she had blood that was taken from a paper plate where they used sandpaper to cut the Bigfoot's tongue as he licked the plate. And she was able to get a full nuclear genome from that. And when she compared that nuclear genome to the known animals in the world, it did not match anything, period.
Right. So that's very significant. So she decided to end up writing a peer review paper, which would be the natural step that any scientist, if they discovered something, would do. And what happened after she wrote what they call a white paper to present to the scientific community? What happened with that?
Well, the whole focus of the genome study was to do this paper. You know, there was to have that published in a journal, a peer-reviewed journal. And basically, a peer review means that you take your findings, you present them to a journal, and under specific rules, and you try to get at least 3 scientists that are familiar with the discipline you used. They read the paper and they give their opinion, and they say, we think this is worthy of publication, or no, we don't.
Right.
So they went to the journal. So this is a 3-year process.
Right. It sounds like we might have lost our guest there. If you want to pick back up there. You were talking about the scientific paper. You needed 3 scientists to approve it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and pick back up there. Basically, basically, when you do a peer review, there's a peer review panel. It's usually at least 3, okay?
Yeah.
And basically, you need a majority. In other words, so sometimes 4, but like let's say they it's always a blind. No, Melba wouldn't know. You don't know who's doing this.
Right.
And to maintain integrity, they do it blind. So the publisher, whether it's a scientific journal, they pick the reviewers and they send them the paper blind, and they make their opinion. And usually, if a majority, like if there's 4, 3 out of the 4 say publish, they publish. 2 out of 3, they publish. But basically, it's up to the journal itself. I mean, the journal can have what they call passive reviews and decide not to publish. But anyway,
yeah.
So that's the process in a nutshell.
Right.
It's a very political process. It's not scientists are people.
Right.
There's belief systems. There's all kinds of stuff. There's money. There's grant money. There's things. A lot more going on behind the scenes than you think.
Right.
So
yeah.
when Melba first did this, she got her paper together, and she actually went and she had a home killer who was a scientist, and he helped write the book Hunt for the Skinwalker. And she had a meeting with him, and a few other people showed the paper, and they kind of helped her with the paper as far as arrange it and write it. But one of the things they told her, they said, we don't know if you'll get this published.
Right.
And she says, well, it's good science. Why not? They're like, you don't understand. This ain't got nothing to do with science.
Right.
It's all about you're getting ready to gore, the golden steer here. And, scientists just aren't going, most scientists aren't going to go out on a limb with such controversial stuff. So it doesn't matter how good the science is.
Right.
But Melba, it's kind of like, well, hey, if the science is good, it doesn't matter. And they're like, well, we'll see. And so anyway, she moved forward. She took the paper to the journal Nature.
Yeah.
And the first set of peer reviews were horrible. They delayed, and they took forever to get the peer reviews back. And when they got them back, of course, they said, we're not going to publish. And basically what they do is the reviewers will tell you, you need to do this to your paper. You need to put this in, take that out. So lots of times you don't get it passed on the first pull around. You submit it, they reject it, you make the changes they ask for, add supplementary data, they ask for more data, etc.
Right.
But and actually the peer reviews are I have them on my website, on my blog, Bigfoot Field Journal. You can read them if you want to go through that mess and read them. Okay. But basically 2 of the 3 guys didn't even read the paper. They asked for data that was already in the paper. They were pretty much going to scuttle her, regardless. And so she resubmitted the paper. And see, during this whole process, this took 3 years to do, okay? They submitted, resubmitted. During this time, you've got a gag order. Melba can't talk about the paper. Melba can't do anything. Well, as, people get impatient with her, people, we're going to do our own study. We're going to test our own samples. We have people with their own agendas. It became a mess. And then you have the establishment itself trying to scuttle the paper to begin with. Right. And so after 3 years and and she resubmitted the paper with all the changes that Journal Nature wanted, they still denied to publish, which and so at that point, Melba was kind of looking for any journal to publish the paper. She was either just going to publicly release the paper to say here it is, or she was going to try and maybe find a smaller, less prestigious journal, just any way to get it out there. And she found this one journal called the Noble Journal, or it was actually before that, that off the top of my head, I don't have my computer in front of me. I can't even remember the website. But it was a journal. The guy was an upstart. And he looked at Melba's paper. He had 3 scientists look at it. Of the 3, he got 2 passing reviews, and he said, "I'm going to publish your paper. This will be my inaugural, journal. This will, be a big splash and put me on the map."
All right.
So the word comes out. Melba called Dave and said, "Okay, hey, I've got passing reviews. We're going to publish. Get everything we need ready. Blah 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 blah."
Yeah.
And so we have the date to publish, and we're ready to go. And at the very 9th hour, Melba gets a phone call from the guy who published, whose journal it is, and he said, "I can't publish your paper." And she said, "What do you mean you can't publish it?" He said, "My lawyer is threatening to quit." And he said, "I own another business." And he said, "If I get associated with Bigfoot DNA, I've been told through my lawyer that it will ruin my business and I'll go bankrupt."
Huh.
And so basically the guy, he said, "I can't publish your paper." So he said, I got to have my lawyer. I got to have my other business because it's how I make my business. He said, "This journal was just going to be something I played with, because I enjoy doing stuff like this."
Right.
And she's like, "Well, crap, And so he offered, and it was kind of a mutual deal. He said, "I'll tell you what, after this, I don't even want to deal with a scientific journal. I just need to run my business and be done with this crap."
Right.
And he said, "I'll be willing to, to sell you, give you the rights to the journal." And he said, "That way you can preserve these peer reviews," because she had 2 scientists that did passing peer reviews.
Right.
And so she agreed. She got the journal. She renamed it to the Novo Journal. And then she self-published the paper. Of course, a bunch of scientists lost their minds. "You self-published, blah, blah, blah." Of course, we forget to say that people like Brian Sykes self-publishes.
Right. Yeah.
Meldrum self-publishes. He has his own journal. And he publishes his own stuff in his own journal. So, that's all part of the disinformation campaign. But basically, she goes and she publishes her results and lets the chips fall where they may.
Right.
And anybody that's involved in it was, there was people out to attack her submarine and try to, scientists wouldn't even look at it. Paulides tried to say something about it. He's an idiot. You can quote me on that.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know what nuclear DNA is, and anytime a scientist sees a hair sample come back with human mitochondrial DNA in it, and they say, "Oh, it has to be contaminated." Well, no, it's probably Bigfoot hair. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
that was.
It's all history now, I guess.
Yeah. You know what was so sad about it? I heard Dr. Melba Ketchum on Coast to Coast, and she was asked if she regretted it, and she said yes. And that's a shame because the scientific community that she was part of basically treated her awful. And then there was also some of the Bigfoot community that also treated her kind of bad. What I was hearing, I don't know if that's true or not, but I thought, wow,
Well, the problem was, it was the worst thing it could be. Many old-time big names in the Bigfoot community had staked their reputations and written books, and their reputations were staked on it being a bipedal ape.
Right.
And when Melba came out and said it's not a bipedal ape, it's a human hybrid, they lost their mind. So she had at least 50% of the Bigfoot community pushing back because they didn't want it to be a human hybrid.
Right.
The scientific community was pushing back because they didn't want it to be a human hybrid because it secured the sacred cow, which was evolution.
Right.
Because it totally blew evolution out of the water.
Yes.
Of course, the interesting thing was, later there have been studies published in which scientists have found skeletons that have human Mitochondrial DNA and unknown nuclear DNA. The exact same thing that Melba found, except since these were accepted scientists and they found their skeletons and did trans, their results are accepted, hers were rejected.
Right.
And there was part of the community, I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you, general nature, I think the attitude, this is my opinion, but the attitude was, we're not going to let some redneck woman veterinarian Texas and a bunch of gay hoes from America make one of the biggest discoveries of the 20th century, the 21st century. Ain't happened. It ain't happened. And so they did.
Right.
And, you know, and that's the kind of power they have. They're the gatekeepers.
Right.
People don't understand the peer review process is a gatekeeping process.
Right.
And you only do studies that you're funded to do. And guess who does all the funding? The government. So when you go petition the government for money to do your study, you know, if you want to study, you know, the life cycle of a tsetse fly, okay, that's good. We'll give you $300,000 to go to it. So the guy can go do a study and put his kids through school.
Right.
But if you say, I want to do a study on Bigfoot DNA, they're going to, oh, hell no, you're not. And no, you're not going to get any money for that. And so, you know, that's kind of where the power is. And scientists are ruthless.
Yeah.
They're, you know, in most people's business, if you're a plumber and you've got another plumber in town, there's usually enough business to go around. Or you may be competitors, but you don't try to purpose. Most normal people don't try to purposely put him out of business.
Right.
Well, in the scientific community, when they go back here, they want to put you out of the community. They want to put you out of the job, and they don't care who starves. They don't care if your kids starve. They want you, you know, they want to put you in the plumbing industry. I mean, that's the difference. And people, it's hard for people to get their heads around. It's such a cutthroat deal, but it is.
Yeah. Well.
Dr. Ketchum lost everything. Everything. Oh,
Yeah.
She lost her business. She was a DNA consultant for the state of Texas, and she couldn't. The prosecutors told her, "We can't use you anymore because as soon as they get you on the stand, but the defense is going to say, aren't you the Bigfoot woman?"
Right.
And so it totally ruined her.
Right.
Totally ruined.
Well, I really wanted to interview Melba Ketchum because I appreciate what she did. And maybe it's not all over just yet. But I feel like the biggest obstacle she had was what we will get into on the second episode, and that's going to be the spiritual nature. And also, too, I'd like to be able to talk about Dogman also, because I have a lot of fans that really love the Dogman thing. But I believe that there's a spiritual battle that was trying to keep that evidence from going mainstream, because it would prove Genesis 6 in the scriptures to be, or at least it would be some really good evidence for the Bible being true when it talks about Genesis 6 and the sons of God coming down to the daughters of men. Because one of the interesting things I heard and that came out of that study was that not only was it female mitochondrial DNA, but it was, a lot of that was Middle Eastern, which would have been in the area that the Bible was talking about, and then also Native American, and the DNA kind of matched up more so for those people groups. And when I heard that, it was just like, wow, she does, I don't know how much she knows about what kind of discovery she made, but to me, I think that is one of the major, most important discoveries ever made to prove that the Nephilim theory is a very legit theory when it comes to these type subjects, and that particular type of cryptid, and other cryptids, even like Dogman and things like that. And
I agree 100% with you on that point.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I think that one thing. Go ahead.
So when you come back, we'll get into that, and that way we can slowly lead the where the evidence goes without Bible slapping somebody on the first episode, and you know what I'm saying? Because the evidence is there, and you come to this conclusion also, and I know because talking to you privately that you're a very intelligent guy, man, and a lot of the things you have to say is very it's so interesting that I just know that the fans would love to hear the input that you have on this subject.
Yeah, I mean, I come to that conclusion in my second book, my ebook, Bigfoot General Volume 2. I mean, you know, when I draw, at the end of the book, I draw my conclusions, and that's, you know, I have 2 very extensive chapters on, that why I believe that the Bigfoot are the Nephilim, and, that lay out my case based on the, forensic evidence.
Yeah, and if you would, send me a link to how people can get to your book, and I'll put that in the description, and also in the drop-down menu up in the top right corner of the screen. When you hover with the mouse, a little circle pops up with like an exclamation point. Click that, and it'll give you a drop-down menu, and we'll put that site there and also in the description. We'll also feature your channel and your YouTube channel in the drop down and the menu and the description. And I really appreciate you coming on today. And is there anything else that you would like to add to this particular episode?
I think to sum it all up, our conclusions were Bigfoot's a human hybrid. I think it's important for people who are either already researching or thinking about getting into this as a hobby. They're not what you think they are. And this is not, a fun family activity that I would engage in on the weekends.
It's dangerous.
This is serious stuff, and the people need to be aware that, what we're dealing with is, it's not like fishing or hunting or hiking.
Yeah, Les Stroud learned that.
Junior out on how to do.
Yeah, you also worked with Les Stroud, right?
Yeah, I was featured on his show, Survivorman Bigfoot, and I was also featured on an episode of Finding Bigfoot.
Right. Yeah, I thought Les had a very interesting encounter after you had told him he thought that it might be Nephilim, and he fell asleep that night, and he had a sleep paralysis incident where a Bigfoot came sat on his chest. That was amazing. Yeah. But see, that makes me tempted to go on into the subject, and I think that
that's a good teaser for our next.
Yeah, that's a segue to
what Les Stroud thinks the Bigfoot really are.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that guy, and I really thought he had a good chance at finding it in the way that because some of those other shows they go out with such big camera crews. There's no way, man. You know what I mean?
No. It's Finding Bigfoot is a reality show, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, it's fun to watch, but it's just not going to yield results.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I mean, because there's several. I'm not going to badmouth anybody. A couple of the people on there know what they're doing. A couple of people don't. But
yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's about what the producer wants to put on, not what they want to do.
Right. Now, there's one of the days. One day, I'm going to go down to Louisiana and check this site out, man. And if you is there any way? If there's any way that you'd be able to go with me, man, I'd sure appreciate it if you could get the time and this coming year anyway. There's a really good site down in Louisiana that I'd like to check out, and taking you along would be pretty cool, man. You can think about that.
I'll think about it. We can work it out. We'll try to get it together.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, Scott, and if so, all you fans out there, just be looking for episode 2, and we'll get into the Nephilim aspects of this, the supernatural. And whenever I say supernatural, a lot of people say, well, how can it be non-physical? And then, supernatural doesn't mean something is not physical. In the scriptures, I've got one video where I talk about all celestial creatures have flesh. These creatures have bodies. The angels ate food. That doesn't mean you're not physical. So anyway, it'll be a very interesting show, the next one. Well, and we'll talk about Dogman also, because to me, I think that's one of the most interesting creatures that are out there in the woods. So a big thank you to Scott, and I want you all to go check out his YouTube channel, subscribe, and watch some of his videos. He's got some very interesting stuff, and go buy his book. And until the next time, God bless you all, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.